This Hello everybody. This meeting is called to order at 2:11 p.m. First and foremost, we would like to acknowledge that the SFSS as a body is located on the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples. These are the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, and Kitsi nations. And unceded means that these territories have never been handed over, sold, or given up by these nations, and we're currently situated on occupied territories. And many of us are at different places now, so it's important that we try to find out which territories we're on in our different homes. I live close to campus, so I am on the same territories. So we'll do a roll call for attendance. Um, First and foremost, that's me. So my name is Giovanni Hassan. I am the president. My pronouns are he, him, his. My access needs are met. Access needs is anything we can do as a whole to make you feel more comfortable in the space or feel if you have to go or stuff like that, you just say it at that point. We have a VP external coming on later on, if possible, but she did send regrets, so we will be ratifying that. Uh, VP Finance.
Hi, I'm Tonder. My pronouns are he, him, his, and all my access needs met.
Student Life.
Hi, I'm Jessica. My pronouns are she, hers, her, and if everyone could just enunciate, that would be great.
University.
Hi everyone, I'm Shaina, VP University. Pronouns are she, her, hers, and my access needs are met. Thank you.
At large. Any other at larges here? Manit. I didn't get regrets in there. Applied science.
Hi, my name is Nick Chubb. I go by he, him, his, and all my access needs are met.
Arts and social science.
I'm Jennifer, she, her, hers, and my access needs are met.
We have business.
Hi, my name is Andrew. Business rep, pronouns he, him, his, and all my access needs are met.
Okay, we have FCAT. FCAT is here. No, FCAT isn't here. We have education.
Hi, my name is Emily, she, her, hers, and all my access needs are met.
Environment Center Grets. Health Science Center Grets. She will be here later on. She's at a different meeting. Science.
Simran, my pronouns are she, her, hers, and my access needs are met.
Okay, sweet. And now we have society staff as well.
Sylvia, she, her, hers, my access needs are met. Thank you.
Shanika Blake, she or hers, access needs are met.
Sarah, she, her, and hers, and all my access needs are met.
Christine, she, her, hers, and all my access needs are met.
Rowena, she, her, hers, all my access needs are met.
Okay, and we have guests. The peak. Okay, if the peak is maybe not here yet. We also have our council liaisons, Zaina and Ryan.
Ryan Van Sickle, he, him, his. All my needs are met. Zaina could not make it today, I believe.
Okay. And we have the council chair.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gabe. I'm the council chair. My pronouns are he, him, his, and my access needs are met.
Okay. And welcome everybody else who is on the call. We have some incoming board members here today. I will be extending speaking privileges to them for the purposes of the budget discussion that we're supposed to be having today, to see if there's any amendments that they also would like or any board members would like, giving the opportunity for board members to speak, of course, first and foremost. So with this meeting being called solely on the premise of being budget related, I will take the adoption of the agenda as is. Be resolved to adopt the agenda as presented. Can I have a mover for that motion? From the board, please.
I move.
I being
Nick.
Nick moves. Any seconder?
I'll second.
Shina seconds. And we're going to, so seeing no amendments, I will seek unanimous consent for this motion. Be it resolved to adopt the agenda as presented. Seeing no more discussion, any opposition regarding the unanimous consent that I'm seeking? Just unmute. Seeing none, the motion is carried. Meeting agenda adopted. Approval of the minutes. So be resolved to receive and file the following minutes. Board 2020-04-15, that's last week. Can I have a mover?
I move.
Nigel moves. Tawanda Nigel moves. Can I have a seconder? Can I have a seconder for, let me
I'll second. Nick.
Nick seconds. Okay, seeking unanimous consent for these two motions. Just as a point, I will be adding regrets after the approval of the minutes. They weren't on the list as regrets here. But I will seek a vote on this board minutes adoption or receiving. So Nigel moved, Nick seconded. I seeking unanimous consent on the motion. Please unmute if you're against this. If you, yeah. Okay, so seeing none, the motion is also carried. Be resolved to receive and file the following minutes. FAC 2020-03-27. May I have a mover?
I'll move it.
May I have Emily moves. May I have a seconder?
I'll second Andrew.
Andrew seconds. Okay, so seeing no discussion on the motion, or yeah, this is just a 5 minutes. Seeking unanimous consent on the motion. If there is any opposition to this, please unmute. Seeing none, the motion is carried. We also have regrets that I should have done before the approval of the minutes. So be resolved to ratify the regrets of. So I'm going to read it and then say. So we have Jasdeep, Rehan, Christina, Julian. What's up? So be resolved to ratify the regrets of Jasdeep, Gail, Rehan. Yeah, Rehan is there. Rehan Khan, Christina Lutzig, Julian Lutzig, and Asad Mohammed. May I have a mover for the motion?
I'll move the motion.
Shina, may I have a seconder?
I'll move, or second, sorry.
Nick seconds. Discussion. Jasdeep has an exam. Rehan sent regrets from last week. We had another meeting. Christine and Julian have family matters, and Asad will be in later on today. I didn't get anything from anybody else. So, is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we move to a vote. I'm seeking unanimous consent on the motion. Anybody opposed, please unmute. Okay, I'll take the motion as carried unanimously as well. All these motions are unanimous if I have sought unanimous consent before them. Okay, so now we have discussion items. 2020-21 fiscal year budget draft. So our ED and our finance team has been working on the budget, and I wanted an opportunity for us to discuss and have comments from students and board members and incoming board members. So if there's any changes that we would like to see or be done before the budget approval, and so this is why I called this special meeting today. Well, I guess a board meeting for this to be discussed. We also have another item on the agenda regarding a policy, well, a guideline that we want to add to the policy as a pilot policy to be moved and passed at the next meeting. But we also have it for discussion, but there's no more matters to be discussed today. So we're going to the budget draft. Sylvia can start, board members can give comments. Sylvia and her team can start, and board members can give comments, and then we give opportunity for anybody else. Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you, Giovanni. Is it possible for, sorry, I'm just turning everything on. Can I start? Are you able to share the budget, please?
Yeah, we'll do.
Yeah, thank you. Because I'm working from an iPad and it doesn't allow me for some reason to do that. So just to start it off, first I want to thank obviously Rowena, Kurt, and David from the finance team for working very hard on a very difficult budget. They have done a stellar job with the direction that I have been giving them with the information that we've been able to gather. And I also want to thank the Finance Committee and its chair particularly for supporting us in what we are going to present. And we had a meeting last Friday. My days are all blurred. I'm sure yours are too. And we discussed, we had a very thorough discussion, and what's going to be shared is what we agreed was going to be presented to you. Obviously for input, for your thoughts, and as Giovanni said, any changes that may happen, we will then draft it again and have it out to you by the 29th of, so that you can have a vote on it on the 29th of April. So I'm not seeing the budget, Giovanni. Are you sharing it?
Oh, yes, he's sharing his screen now. We can see it.
Okay, I am unable to see anything. Let me just.
Yeah, I'm sharing it, Sylvia.
Is it possible to in a bit?
Say again, zoom in. Okay. Is that better?
No, and for some reason.
Yeah, a little bit.
And
better?
No, let me see.
Yes. Okay.
I don't know what this is.
I tell you what, Sylvia, I will create it as I will get a link. I'll create a Google Sheet and send you the link, and then you can follow using that, and then I will try to sync up as best as I can.
Okay, so then I will just start because I kind of know the budget by heart after looking at it. And if I forget anything, obviously Rowena is on the call, so she'll be able to also share with you and share her thoughts. I'll start by saying that we made some basic assumptions as to what is going to happen in the summer and fall, obviously, and also in the spring of next year, because the budget is normally May 1st to April 30th of each year. So the first assumption we made with the best guess possible was that in the since the summer semester is not in person, that we were going to have a drop in enrollment, both for international students and for domestic students. And you have it in your notes as to the percentages that we put in front of you in order to make the budget for the revenues that we are expecting we are going to get. For your information, I'm having a call with Erin Biddlecombe on Friday. We have a monthly check-in, and I have that question for her because the university should have a better idea as to what's happening with enrollment in the summer and hopefully what's happening in the fall. As you probably know, the other assumption that we made is that we will all be back physically in September, but now that is another matter that we need to carefully consider because, as you have probably heard, many universities in the state specifically are bracing for not having a face-to-face fall semester or a very limited face-to-face fall semester with the impacts that will have on enrollment and on budgets, obviously. So you see the information in front of you. Are there any questions around that? I want to go slowly so that you're able to ask whatever questions you feel are important. Okay, no questions, so I will continue. We then, of course, go to expenses, and I'm finding this very disturbing. So while I'm talking, I'm going to try to get my budget on my screen so at least I can look at it. So the expenses that we have budgeted are obviously the normal expenses for the functioning of the organization. And you see the different pieces that we have put in there. Sorry, you hear me tapping because I'm trying to get on my screen. And voila. 2 more seconds, I promise you. And there we have it. Okay. Alrighty. So now I have it. So we have, obviously, as we have done in previous years, and as we've been reporting throughout the year, we divide the organization into administrative costs. So we have a finance office, a student center, the communications office, and so on and so forth. And we go down the line. I will bring your attention to a particular line item, which is on line 25, number 32A. And that is the administration office. Last year, the budget for it was $829,000. And you will see on column 25D that has been dropped to 642. The reason for that is when we budgeted last year, we budgeted with the intent of having a full complement of staff and more staff for the entire year, which of course ended up not happening. So we are now budgeting with the realistic number of what is expected to be at the office. The other piece that I will bring to your attention is in the the food bank contribution. We have increased by about $10,000, and that is once again in order to be able to accommodate the need that we have been seeing in the past months. And I think everything else is pretty much the same as the previous year, or very similar. So I'm going to pause there and ask if there are any questions that you may have.
I actually have a few questions. So under administrative costs on number 31, I think it says like travel mileage, travel food, travel other, travel lodging. I saw that there was nothing from this board year. Why is that being budgeted for the upcoming board year?
I'm just looking for my tab, so hold on, please. Roena, are you able to answer the question while I look for my tab?
Yeah, the reason that we have it budgeted this year is because we had those expenses in the current year. So they were not budgeted for 1920, but they were actual expenses during the year. So we have put in a budget for the upcoming year. I think that was some of your travel related to your conference for the student union. Is it Amicus?
Right. So sorry, I just popped the tab. So yes, we had to put a number in there because I or any other staff members have been attending conferences, always approved by the president or the board. And obviously there's a cost related to that. So when I think, for instance, of the Amicus conference, which took place in Kelowna, there were expenses for that, which had not been budgeted before. And apparently my predecessor didn't like attending conferences. So that's why the previous year there was nothing budgeted for it. And in 2019, 2020, we did the same. I am not particularly fond of attending conferences, but I think they're important in order to bring good intelligence back to the organization. And for instance, when Giovanni Osa, Shaina, myself, and Fiona attended the BCFS, there were expenses related to kilometers and all of that. So that's why we've put the dollar amount to reflect expenditure, which we may or may not anticipate for this year.
So my second question was regarding the food bank budget. I was wondering why we specifically chose to increase it by 10,000 because I don't think that's enough considering right now for the summer semester we're only giving students $75 to last them throughout the entire 4 months.
Like I said, we went with what we had spent in the previous year, and that's the decision that we put in. But if the board says we want to triple it, we want to double it, we can do that obviously. But
I think we should increase it because of COVID-19, a lot more students are finding themselves without proper access to food and money to buy food.
Right. The only, and I am absolutely in agreement. I'm just saying that because we don't know what that looks like, the board will have to make a decision as to, do we increase it? Do we double it? Do we triple it? Do we quadruple it? Right? Because without having data, except for the data that happened during a normal year, it is very difficult to then forecast what you should put in a budget.
Didn't we give out a survey that students were to fill out regarding their living circumstances and their situation? Couldn't we use that data?
Yeah, it's not, the full results are not released yet.
I can provide an update. I think one of the reasons that increasing the food bank program at this time rather than the bursary might not be the right move because Nesters and Safeway have just confirmed that they won't be able to offer virtual gift certificates. They would have to be in person. So it might be prudent to consider looking at the bursary rather than the food bank program right now to address the COVID concerns.
So that being said, thank you for that, Sarah. That being said, then perhaps what we should look at is the bursary contribution. We could potentially up that and think of another way of distributing more money to the students in the upcoming year through another bursary, such as the one that the board just voted on. That's another potential. And I have said, and I did say this at the Finance Committee, and obviously the Finance Committee members are here, so if they want to pipe up, this has been a very difficult budget because of the inability to plan or to predict what's going to happen when nobody else in the planet, I would say, is able to predict what's going to happen. So this is our best guesstimate. And, you know, we may have to restate the budget halfway through. We may have to restate it after, you know, we find out if the fall is going to be in person or not. So this is just a budget. It is what it is. It is probably as accurate as any of us around the table guesses. But that being said, we can up the contribution for a bursary, or the board can at one point decide to have a one-time vote like you did for the $150,000, and it's not necessarily in the budget. So there's a lot of options of what you can do. Any other questions from Jennifer or anybody else? No? Okay, I shall continue then. We continue with the board allocations. Obviously, our board executive and non-executive has a stipend and expenses that accompany that. And basically, we have left everything around the same levels. Again, the amounts that are there are to reflect the actual amounts that were spent in the year. We've upped, I bring your attention to line 64, column D. We have upped the legal and consulting fees to about $25,000, and that is to reflect what went on this year. Because, you know, we can predict that there will be other consultations that the board might want to do. And at the end of the day, this is a budget, but if we don't spend it, then that's a good news story. The same thing for the BOD retreat, orientation and development. Last year, we did have several development sessions that were with professionals that we have to pay. And therefore, the actual expenditure hovers around $20,000 for all of it, the retreat, the orientation, and the development. So that's why that has gone up. The council expenditures, the question was asked during the Finance Committee, has dropped to around $2,000, and we budgeted for that, and that is again to reflect what was actually spent during the year. The slight increase in the AGM is around the bringing the consultant to present on the bylaws that have been reviewed and that have been in the works and that are supposed to come for approval at the 2020 AGM. Other than that, we have left the expenditures on, sorry, I'm going to pause there. Are there any questions around the board expenditures? No? Okay. And please stop me anytime. I'm just pausing at the blocks of information so that you're able to ask the question. So what we have done also for the services that we intend to provide are to leave them around the same as if we were there in person. And you're going to ask, why is that, Sylvia, when at the end of the day, we know that people are not going to be there this summer, and we don't know if September is going to be face-to-face. Again, we didn't want to take away any of the expenditures for the clubs and so on until we have a better idea. I rather over project on an expenditure than under project, and then we don't have the money to put that in place. And the numbers again reflect what we have spent. You will see that there is a new line item, which is in the Excel sheet 83D, and that is the FNSA, and that is for the coordinator that has been hired and who will be starting. So that's prorated, who will be starting at in September, and that is at their request.
Question, sorry, where's the line item again? I've been looking for that one. Which
So if you go to services,
services?
you go all the way down after out on campus. You see Women's Center out on campus, FNSA.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So that is for the coordinator expenditure, and this is an in and out. We're putting it there in order for it to be visible, the same way the out on campus or any of our other departments are. The FNSA is being put there in order for us to see it, but it's an in and out of the administrative budget. That person actually will be paid from our administrative budget as the board approved this year.
So it would be a revenue into the FNSA fund?
No, we're not paying the person from the FNSA fund. We're paying.
No, so it's an internal transfer from admin costs to FNSA fund.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it listed here as revenue?
Hello?
Yeah. Hi, Rena.
The position of the FNSA coordinator will effectively be funded through the operating fund because the FNSA fund will not cover the cost for this coordinator. It will cover the costs for programming. So it is a net cost to the organization for which we won't collect. The fees to pay for this coordinator come from the general fund, not from the FNSA fund. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see it here on the budget itself. So it's the coordinator wages. It says wages and benefits. Should it be like a revenue into the fund instead of like from here, because this would show that it's coming. This would just show that it looks like it's coming from the department itself, based on if you look at it.
Because this is being paid from.
We can't hear you, Rona.
This position is being paid from the operating fund. So we need to show it as an expense of the fund, of the operating fund.
So the 90141 is not a FNSA line item?
The what? The which line? Sorry?
The GL account line item in the FNSA Department 41. It's a 901/41 coordinator wages. That is from the operating line item.
Okay, so to be technical, they will be charged out of the FNSA fund just for record-keeping purposes. But at the end of the year, the general fund will do a transfer from the general fund to the FNSA fund to cover any, to make sure that that fund is whole.
Okay.
It's just the convention of the way how we have to present the budget.
That's right. And for the fee revenue, so I'm still had a question around this morning, around the fee revenue for the fee paying groups like SFPERG, CGSF, all of the, and FNSA. They get funding from both SFSS and the GSS. When this says fee revenue here, does that include the GSS membership levy as well?
That's a question I asked Rena before, and then she was looking into it. Go ahead, Rena. Sorry.
Yes, I think it does include the GSS revenue, but I will take a closer look before we finalize the budget.
Okay, so thanks.
Yep. And before I can answer Rachel. So, all right. So can I go back to the consolidated then?
Yes, let me do that.
Are there any other questions? No? Okay. So as you can see, I draw your attention to the deficit on line, my Excel sheet is 88D. The deficit that we are projecting is $521,000. And as you notice in column C, which is the current year budget, we had a projected or budgeted deficit of $132,000, which I'm very happy to report is actually a surplus of approximately $250,000. The reason I point that out is because, as with anything, especially with this budget in an era where we have made some assumptions that may or may not be true, may or may not come true, the reality is that last year, the budget that's prior to Rowena's arrival, the budget was, cobbled up the way that we knew how, or we thought was going to pan out. But there is a surplus of $250,000 that we are projecting for this year. So when you budget and you see a potential deficit, is not a realized deficit. And so I'm thinking that even though we are going to be attempting to do, we'll see what happens in the summer, but let's pretend the summer is still, let's not pretend the summer is not a person-to-person semester. Probably what we have projected for services for the student unions and so on, even though we are attempting to ramp up activities and events that are happening online and so on, the costs are not the same, because obviously we're not buying pizza, we're not buying supplies, we're not renting a room, whatever it is that we need to do. So we are going to see that most likely what we see there as a potential expenditure, it is not going to happen. So we can already project, in my opinion, about a quarter for the summer of what you see there won't be spent. And if the fall is also not an in-person semester, then we can imagine that maybe half of that will not be spent. The other half will be spent on, perhaps buying licenses for Zoom so that we can have larger meetings. There's a lot of potential of what we can do. So if we were to alone have savings in that area, it would already erase the projected budget, or by and large erase the projected budget. The other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention, as you probably may have noticed and may not have noticed, we have not budgeted the fall kickoff, simply for the reason that after what happened last year last year, and the ability for us to maybe take a second sober second thought over the events that we hold, not only that event, but all events, and see what is the best that we can do with the money, with the students' money. We decided not to put a fall kickoff in the budget in order to take the year to really think about it, plan, and try to figure out how to move forward with events, especially larger events, if at all. So with that, I don't have anything else to add. I don't know if Tawanda or Rowena have anything else that I might have forgotten. Oh, sorry. The last thing that I wanted to see is the budget that we have tried to put together is a budget that is trying to preserve the organization as much as we can, the way it is right now, in order to ride this wave and not decimate the organization, so that we can be ready and strong and able to ramp up our operations the moment we are allowed back on the mountain or downtown or in Surrey. That's it for me. Mm-hmm.
I think from my end, I just want to say thank you so much, Sylvia and Rowena, for all the hard work you guys have put in. I know with the uncertainties that we're facing right now, it's pretty difficult to compile a budget, and there's so many unknowns. But hats off to you guys for what you guys have done. like you mentioned, Sylvia, it's a good thing that we actually have enough money in the bank to sustain us through this pandemic. And I'm sure, and I agree with you, it's very important to ensure that, our staff and everyone stays intact so that, when all this is done and over with, we just hit the road running. So thank you so much, and appreciate all the work that you guys have put in.
Thank you, Tawanda. For everybody's information, there is, aside from what we are budgeting, as I said, which is not a realized budget, it's a projection. We do have substantial reserves in currently, which can be used to offset the losses if there are any losses at the end of the day, and that is what we're proposing to do.
I wanted to bring up an issue about revenue. The SFSS will be eligible for subsidy from the government if our revenues are down 30% in May. We don't know what our revenues will be in May, but that is just something to keep in mind. And I believe it's up to 75% of salaries would be funded by the government, assuming that there are no layoffs. So there is kind of a bottom of our projections, knowing that we would be pumped up by a subsidy if, let's say, revenue dropped by 50% for the summer term.
Yep. So there are mechanisms in place where we can sustain the organization and not bear the brunt. But like I said, I mean, aside from all of that, the money that we have in the bank currently, paring back on some of the things that are there simply because we're just not there physically, in my opinion, the same way that we projected a deficit of 132 grand this year and it ended up on a surplus of 250. And I know that some people may be skeptical and maybe cynical, and they may think, oh, you sandbagged the budget last year. First of all, I want to say that, yes, I take responsibility for and accountability for everything that happens in the organization, but I came in at a time where the budget was on the 21st iteration by the time I joined the organization. So you can imagine that it was very difficult to steer it one way or the other. But for those who might consider or think that we sandbagged the budget, we didn't. We really tried to do, as with what we knew, we tried to do a best estimate. And that is the same thing that we are doing here. But right now, because I have 1 year with the organization and Rona has been with us for a little over 6 months, we were able to guesstimate a little bit more closely. The other wrench that had just gotten thrown on us, obviously, is this COVID-19 and everything that goes with it. So
I wanted to add that what is not included in the budget is any money for an internal or forensic audit. If that was to go forward, I would suspect it to be north of 50,000 because, doing it virtually, getting a hold of people involved, reviewing documents, it's going to be a lot more than the original estimate that the auditors gave us. I wasn't given any direction either way to include it or not include it, but I decided not to include it. So please bear that in mind if an audit about the fall kickoff were to happen.
Well, for everybody's information, council did meet and I remember Gabe, who's also on the line, briefing the board that council did go ahead with a recommendation to the board. It is the board's decision at the end of the day, but the council did recommend to the board not to go ahead with a fall kickoff, but to be much more mindful in its budgeting, planning, and oversight of any large events. And I was at that meeting, so Gabe, correct me if I am wrong. I know that it is a board decision, so the board may decide to speak on it and have a motion and all of that. I don't know if that may come next week, but that is why that is not in the budget, because at the time, the information that I had was that council was recommending to the board not to do this.
At this point, the executive, when we had a meeting, did not come out with a clear directive regarding one way or the other, and there was not a motion on the board table. So at this point, with the additional information on council, I don't foresee a motion coming to the table regarding this.
Okay, so then that's good. Thank you very much for clarifying that. Are there any?
There are some questions in the chat from the Corbett. So there is a question around the summer jobs federal program. Will it apply to our student staff as an aspect of subsidizing staffing costs? I don't know.
I will have to look into it, but in other organizations where I have worked, as nonprofits, the summer student jobs are very specific. I don't think that our collective agreement allows for that, but thank you for your question, Corbett. I will look into it more closely just to be able to advise the board if we are able to use that as a staffing subsidizing.
Okay. And then he also has another question. My question, looking at the different monthly breakdowns of wages from different departments, I saw that there's a bump for October and April. Some coordinators get it, some don't, but all admin get it. What can you clarify what these bumps are? Corbett, is it possible you clarify which sections are you speaking of in the wage bumps? Sylvia, if you know what that is.
Sorry, as I was turning around, I just dropped a whole whack of water on my floor, so I was just wiping down. Give me 2 seconds.
I can answer that question. I'm just looking at the finance. It just has to do with the number of payrolls in the month, because we are on a biweekly payroll. So 2 months of the year, typically we'll have 3 payrolls. And this year it looks like October and April.
Yep. So when you look at the number of when you're on biweekly, people think there's actually 4.4 payrolls per month when you divide it up, except that in April and in October you have the ones where you have an extra payroll run. So it looks like bumps, but it's just that 3 paychecks. Yeah.
Okay. Some coordinators don't seem to have that. Is that no. You guys can talk offline about that if possible.
Yeah. Okay, we can do that.
Just connect. Is there any questions from the current the current board outside of Jennifer?
I have some questions.
All right, okay, Jennifer.
So the Campaign Research and Policy Office, I saw that the budget decreased from last year, but I'm a little confused because we passed the motion to hire a designated assistant.
I think that motion, well, Rowena, you can speak to Sylvia, you can speak to that. Yeah. The motion said under accessibility, right? So accessibility will have some motion.
That's right. So that will come out of the accessibility fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my other question is, under the consolidated budget, it says student center clubs, which is under, I think, administrative. It says the budget increased there, but then under services clubs, the budget decreased. And then when I went over to the clubs tab, it said the requested club funding is remaining the same for the 2019-2020 budget. However, now separated into 4000G and 4000C. But then I saw that the budget there was a 40K decrease. So I'm a little confused about that part.
Okay, so the services, when we I'm going to start at the beginning of your question. So when we talk about the services, this is the money that actually goes to the clubs directly to pay for their activities. So let's say, I don't know, the parasailing club asks for money for pizza and room rental at a parasailing venue. So that's the money that goes directly to them. The second one that you're talking about, which is the student center, is what we pay in order to operate the student center, right? So that's the salaries and so on that we pay the coordinators at the staff at the student center in order to keep it open and be able to bring the students in and so on. And then the third question that you asked was about clubs, which is tab 13, right? And you say there was a decrease of $40,000?
Yeah, between 2019-2020 budget and 2020-2021 budget.
I can say that the 1920 budget, the actuals did not reflect the budget. So I can if you look at line 80, the club's budget was 306,000. The actual budget, the actual amount is going to be about less than 250,000. Because even though we increased the budget, these expenses have to be properly vetted through, the events have to be planned, they have to be approved by the coordinators, etc. So no matter what the budget is, we need valid expenses and activities in order to pay it out.
Does that answer your question, Jennifer?
Yeah, it does. So my last question would be about the communications office. I saw that we were budgeting for 2,100 for annual subscription to Getty Images. I'm wondering if that's necessary because I usually use Unsplash in marketing for my previous co-op job.
Sorry,
And
what line are you looking at?
It's the communications one.
Yeah, but what line are you looking at?
Hold on. Let me just find it. It's under subscriptions.
Under subscriptions, yeah, 703517.
It doesn't say the number on the sheet that I have. I don't know why. I'm on the communications tab.
Okay.
And but it says that there's a 2,100 annual subscription for Getty Images, and I'm just wondering if that's necessary because there's a lot of free stock images online.
This budget was put together by Sindhu and you know, and then vetted by Rowena. And I mean, when it comes to $2,000, I have a tendency not to question Sindhu because she has the experience of what she's been doing for the year. And, you know, at the end of the day, she may not use the $2,000, but I certainly don't want to shortchange her if she felt that this was necessary. I trust her judgment to put it in. And $2,000, honestly, is not enough to be material for this budget. So, but I certainly will share with her that, you know, maybe we don't need to spend this money if she can avail herself of free images.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking at the chat. That's why you see me frowning, but I'm not frowning at you. I'm looking at the chat, trying to figure out if there are any questions there that you would like us to answer. And since we're going to make the last tweaks on the budget with the information that we've been discussing today. And we will send out to the board the final draft for the meeting on the 29th so that, you know, you can decide you can make your decision.
Sylvia?
Yes.
I know we had a conversation regarding this before, but is it important for the revenue restating, for the revenue state, for the reporting on financial statements in the revenue to make sure that there's a note that says it is not prorated and it's the revenue for the whole year, so that we don't have the situation where we think we have much more money than we do in the years
Yes.
that we have, and that also be put somewhere in the budget that we put up online as well.
Yeah.
And then also
So sorry, I'm going to stop you so that everybody catches up to what you're saying. Is because Giovanni, myself, and VP Finance normally receive, and Rowena, of course, we receive the financial statements. In our financial statements, it shows that we have a $700,000 projected surplus, which is not real. It is because of the way the revenues are, for lack of a better word, registered in our books, that it's offset, so it makes it seem like we have more than we actually have. So we're going to put a note in order to for whoever reads the statements, they understand that it's prorated.
Yeah, and then another note that clarifies and points people to the policy, provided that it passes on the 29th. But another note that states that a particular portion of the board, the department budget and the committees are restricted for board and will be spent with using the guideline that we passed.
Yeah, we will, if you pass it, we will publish a guideline, because this year, as we have discussed, there was a bit of a confusion.
Yeah, I talked to Sarah about having it actually included in the policy manual as well.
Yeah.
Actually, so that we have one document.
Yeah, it will be published in there, yeah.
Have another note, so have another note that says, is there any other comments from board members?
Okay. I'm reading the chat, that's why I'm nodding my head.
Does anybody else have any other comments? Two last calls for comments.
I see that Corbett does in the chat.
Okay. Any other calls for comments from the board members? Calling for comments from the board members. Going once. Going twice. Corbett, and this will be the last comment suggestion. If there's anything else over the time, please feel free to email, and we will have that talked about. Is there operating budget? Are there any budgets for the various funds, space expansion and accessibility budgets?
Because these are funds that are, sorry, did you want to answer that, Giovanni?
No, you can speak to it.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, Rowena, but because these are funds that are at the discretion of the board, if there are expenditures within it, and it is with a presentation that we make to the board, for instance, from the Space Expansion Fund, we requested $60,000, I believe it was from there, for a third elevator in the sub. We brought it to the board with the rationale. The board then had an opportunity to debate it and decided to give the go-ahead. We do not have budgets because we don't know what may be coming down the line. In this case, the only item that would be in the accessibility fund, for instance, is the hiring of a designated assistant who will be supervised by Sarah's department. And that will be coming from the accessibility fund. But we don't prepare budgets simply because the expenditures are at the will of the board, and we have to bring matters for consideration.
In my comment, I was going to say that, like, on a year-to-year basis, the board or the committee in this case would be the one who would say, okay, how are we going to deal with this fund, that incoming board for the year, and say, okay, what on a case-by-case basis, what applications to the expansion fund are we going to try to make sure that we tackle or we approve, as well as for the accessibility committee, the fact that that is such a special committee. What's that? Oh, sorry. Special. Oh gosh. Yo, boss, give me 5 minutes. I'm in a board meeting. One sec. Sorry about that, guys. The accessibility committee, can talk about what they want to do over the year and then pass motions accordingly, or budget accordingly. Similar to what we do for the committee budgets. We know what's in the fund, but for the committee budgets, we'll have a year plan and then decide. So I think that's a step that can be taken. Okay, thank you so much, Sylvia. Seeing as if there is no more questions. If there is, please unmute and ask the questions. But thank you so much, Sylvia, for delivering. I just wanted, really want to recommend that we do this very much. Start the process from November so that students can be involved in the process. But I'm happy that we got an opportunity to bring this forward as a discussion so that people have questions, and I really appreciate the work that has been put into this, so that we can pass it on the last on next week board meeting. But yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for going through in such a thorough manner. And if there's any questions that are asked by folks, please shoot us an email.
Yeah.
And if there's any students that outside the board, I'm here. You can ask Sylvia, email executive.director@sfss.ca for students that are here, and myself, president at SFSS.ca, and we can just ask those, have those requests or questions or anything clarified. But expect a motion for the approval of the budget on the 29th. But thanks again, Sylvia.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
And thanks, Rowena and Nigel and all the other people who worked on this. Okay, so the next discussion on the agenda is, and I have lost my agenda, so it's now anything that you want it to be. Can somebody remind me of the next discussion?
It's Sarah's, it's a policy.
Right, okay. I am pulling it up. The name of it is Forum. Give me a second. Yes, so the guidelines on committee expenditure. Okay. Yes, Sarah can give a brief and then have folks have a chance to talk about it.
Sure. So I prepared this guideline to support the committees that have their budgets housed in coordinator departments. So it's still a board budget, it's just housed in the coordinator's department. So it makes it easier and quicker to be able to pass funds. The success I found last year with the committees that I sit on it just as in support anyways, was by preparing an annual plan at the beginning of the year and then reporting back to the board on any expenditures and also having the proposed expenditures laid out before the event has been undertaken. This made it a little bit easier for the committee and less confusing for them to pass funds at their committee tables. So applying this framework across to the other committees would be a really great way to keep this pilot project going and then evaluating it for another year to see if it would be successful and something that the SFSS might maintain into the future. So I'm happy to take any questions or any thoughts.
So questions from the board. Thank you, Sarah, for doing this. My comments are that this is something that we've been practicing, and I am happy that we, have it on paper, so that there is a clear process for the new incoming board members, especially to have a process in terms of the committee expenditure and all of that. I would love for it to be in just similar to what we do as a terms of reference for the policy manual for the board policies. We have a motion that in the motion that we say we're attaching this as a part of the of an additional terms of reference in the policy itself, and saying that we review in a year, if that is possible for the next board meeting as well. But I just wanted this to come this meeting so that we can, since it's associated with the budget in some case. But yeah, thank you for that. And board members, do you have any comments if you got the document from before this? Okay, so flawless document. Thanks a lot, sir.
No problem.
Yes. Okay. With that being said, everybody, we'll be having that come as a motion, and I'll work with Sarah offline on that one. We didn't have guest Q&A on this because of the discussion, just based on the virtue of the meeting. But is there anything that guests want to ask about the two? We'll be voting on these stuff next week. So no. Okay. So we just have the two attachments. Simon Fraser invoice. I think that came over from the last meeting. I think did we not attach it? Okay, so we now go to adjournment. Christine, were we supposed to talk about the invoice at all, or I see an invoice attached?
Hi, Giovanni. I had reminded you about the invoice. So you had talked about it in the last meeting, but you didn't circulate the invoice.
I
so
see.
that's why
Okay.
it was circulated.
So there's an invoice attached regarding the motion that we passed regarding the MNP, and the invoice is just attached to this meeting, so for people's perusal. So you did get that. And thank you, Christine. I don't think I catched that in the turnover from week to week, but thanks a lot. Cool. All right, so we move to adjournment. Not move adjournment, we move to adjournment. So now be it resolved to adjourn the meeting at 3:18 p.m. May I have a mover for the motion? Just unmute or state your name, whichever. Can I have a mover, please?
I'll move.
Okay, can I have a seconder, please? I second. Giovanni seconds. So be resolved to adjourn the meeting at 3:18. Seeing no discussion, I will move to a vote. Seeking unanimous consent on the motion. If there is any opposition, please unmute. The motion is carried. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for another great meeting. Bye.
Thanks. Later.
Bye. Stay safe, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.